For this video, I had scripted a rather scathing condemnation of the Christian protagonist YouTuber Shock of God, or as I refer to him, Shock of Fraud. But I didn't want to engage in ad hominem attacks. I was going to say that he's not interested in the truth, but rather, like all apologists, only concerned with propagating his dogma by any means. But while that's all true, it just seemed mean-spirited. I intended to point out his use of selective editing, misinformation, word games, and blatant lies, and was even going to impugn his character by suggesting he's about as trustworthy as a vampire in a blood bank. But I'm not going to say those things. Now, if you're not familiar with this particular religious nut farmer, his claim to fame is the ridiculous proof and evidence logical fallacy. I thought this particular road apple had hardened many months ago, and since I only recently started making videos, I didn't weigh in on it while it was being actively discussed. But it seems good old Shock of Fraud is still going on about it in a 22-minute video he uploaded on July 5th, 2012, wherein he critiques a call to the atheist experience from back in 2011. The caller, presumably one of Shock of Fraud's fans, insists that host Matt Dillahunty provide proof and evidence that atheism is accurate and correct. Shock of Fraud spends the first 13 minutes of his video showing the same short snippets of Matt's initial reaction to the question over and over, and accusing Matt of being evasive or unable to answer the question. But he doesn't show Matt's full response. What an asshat, is what I might have said if I was feeling grumpy. As usual, he has ratings disabled and is screening comments on the video, so I don't know if he'll ever reply to me, but regardless, I'm sure he never really wanted a serious dialogue. This is a stupid word game that sounds slick to the ignorant sycophants who follow this buffoon. But to anyone not indentured to religious ideology, it's absurd on its face. Oops. Oh well, no time to edit. Moving on. Elementary school kids are familiar with this type of sleazy linguistic trickery in the form of the old question,
"Does your mom know you masturbate?"
Sure, the distressed look on a child's face might be funny to his peers, but that doesn't legitimize the question itself. The question is constructed on the unfounded assumption that secretive jerking is going on. Similarly, Shock of Fraud's demand is founded on the false assumption that atheism is making a truth claim. It's not. Modern atheism doesn't make an existential claim. It's simply a rejection of God claims. The demand to provide proof and evidence for a lack of belief is nonsensical. Defined as a lack of belief in a god or gods, atheism is a personal intellectual position. If we reverse the proposal, it comes down to this. What's the proof and evidence that you believe in God? I mean, it's fine to insist that someone justify why they do or don't believe something, but it's patently stupid to ask someone to prove that they believe something. Let me break it down. Atheism is a lack of belief in a god or gods. I lack a belief in a god or gods. You are witness to my testimony that I lack a belief in a god or gods. My declaration and your witness are proof and evidence that I don't believe what I say I don't believe. Dismantling this argument may be easy, but not really the point, is it? It seems to me that the demand is nothing more than wordplay, intended to confuse the issue, put atheists on the defensive, or shift the burden of proof. If Shock of Fraud was approaching this subject with honesty, his demand would be provide proof and evidence that there is no God. which, by the way, I plan to do at length in a future video. But I digress. At about 13 minutes into the video, Shock reveals his hand by reading from William Lane Craig's page, Definition of Atheism, on reasonablefaith.org. Craig argues that atheism has to be the denial of a God. He just can't seem to accept that not believing in something due to a lack of evidence is a valid position. He states,
Such a redefinition of the word atheist trivializes the claim of the presumption of atheism. For on this definition, atheism ceases to be a view. It is merely a psychological state which is shared by people who hold various views or no view at all. On this redefinition, even babies, who hold no opinion at all on the matter, count as atheists. In fact, our cat Muff counts as an atheist on this definition, since she has, to my knowledge, no belief in God.
yes, Dr. Craig and Shock, that's it exactly. Atheism is the default position. And what you call a, quote, psychological state, in a transparent effort to color it as a mental illness, is what I have more accurately called an intellectual position. Just because ancient tribal shaman came up with an absurd explanation for whatever they didn't understand, and you buy into it, it doesn't mean that everyone else has the burden of disproving your superstition. It's valid to simply dismiss belief in magic as nonsense. Craig goes on to say,
One would still require justification in order to know either that God exists or that he does not exist, which is the question we're really interested in.
so there we have it. Shock of Fraud could avoid all of the obfuscation if he worded the question honestly, in the form, what proof and evidence is there that a God does not exist? But he doesn't want an answer. He wants the question phrased in a way that rational atheists reject as nonsense, so that he can then claim that they can't answer it. And if they answer it the way I just did, he will no doubt dismiss it because he refuses to accept the definition of atheism as a lack of belief. It seems that honesty doesn't matter to a snake oil salesman like Shock of Fraud. He's out to make cheap points, and will wade through the sewer to make them. Hey Shock, would your God not take issue with your deliberate and repeated transgression of the 9th commandment? Oh, that's right. You Christians can justify any underhanded deeds in the name of your religion. And even if your actions are clear violations of your God's laws, you can just redeem your get-out-of-sin-free card by telling your invisible friend you feel bad about being such a douche.
Error, 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 error.